Please welcome Jorge Castro, who is our guest speaker today. And George is an agilist, agility and digital transformation lead coach, a QA manager, DevOps program manager, and global speaker who feels passion for testing automation, agile, DevOps, and business agility. George encourages focus on people, productivity, continuous improvement, innovation, and having fun to enjoy success on our agile journeys. George has been a speaker in Agile and DevOps event organized in Peru, Canada, UK, Netherlands, India, Germany, Mexico, Colombia, Nigeria, Panama, Azerbaijan, Australia, US, and a few other countries. And George is today dialing in from Lima. And the topic he will be speaking on is building agile testing and BDD example mapping ways of working. George, if I miss anything, feel free to add the details that you would like people to know about you. And thanks again for spending time with us and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you very much for such a kind introduction. Thank you very much for that. No, I think that's all. So first, thank you very much for the invitation. I feel really happy to be here with you guys, with all this community. It's awesome, to share knowledge from Ireland to Peru and so forth. It's amazing, So thank you very much for that. Happy to be here. So I'm going to share my screen right now, if you are okay. So let me share my screen. I hope it's working well. Please let me know when you can see my screen. Please.
Not yet.
Not yet?
But yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. Yeah, I think, sorry. Okay, Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. My name is Jorge Castro, and today I'm going to share with you some experiences about building agile testing and behavior driven development, or BDD, from the trenches. When I say from the trenches, I mean from the field. I work as an agile coach, so I work with agile teams, with extreme programming teams, and Kanban teams. So I work with them, with developers, with testers, in the journey to build these new ways of working. So my experience is from the trenches, from the fields. Okay. So the idea of this session is taking advantage of example mapping technique by the three amigos. By the way, those guys, I assume that you know those guys in my screen. Those are the three amigos. So yeah, it's kind of funny thing. So well, let's start. So well, in this moment, you know who I am, so because of the introduction. But anyway, this is my contact information. Please feel free to add me to your LinkedIn accounts. That would be great if you can add me to your LinkedIn accounts. And of course, if you find something interesting in this conversation, or maybe you would like to get more details about experience, or maybe exchange some advices or some experiences about agile testing and so forth, you can add me to your LinkedIn accounts, and I will be very happy, and I will be glad to share with you and keep in touch, in LinkedIn. Okay, so please add me to your LinkedIn accounts. Thank you. Okay. Okay, as I said, in this conversation, we are going to share experiences from the trenches about how to build agile testing ways of working, BDD, and with example mapping, and basically we use example mapping to decrease gaps and functional bugs and improve lead time. As you know, in these agile ways of working, we have this idea of sprints and short times. Each day we are looking to decrease the lead time, right? And deliver software faster and faster and faster. So in this scenario, our times are short. So the idea is try to decrease the gaps and the functional bugs as much as we can, So I'm going to share with you some techniques that can help you with that. Okay, let's continue. Okay, real life, right? This conversation is about real life. It's not about a book. I like reading books, of course. I admire Lisa Crispin. I admire Janet Gregory as well. But of course, this is about real life situation. So once upon a time, there was a development team, similar, maybe similar to your teams, in your company, maybe similar, maybe, with some tiny problems, right? This development team have some tiny problems. Lack of team collaboration, developers hate testers and testers hate developers, despite of they were working in a kind of agile team, so, real life. Functional bugs, a lot of functional bug gaps in the functionality, too many manual activities, a lot of manual things, manual regression, manual functional testing, and so forth. And of course, as a result of all of that, unhappy stakeholders and unhappy customers. By the way, those are tiny problems, right? They are not big problems. They are tiny problems. Yeah. So I think this is real life. So to face those problems, to try to sort them out, we tried a first experiment, but unfortunately we failed in the experiment. What we tried to reinforce refinements without a structured conversation. We had refinements, as part of our sprints, but without a kind of strategic, without a kind of structure, right? At the beginning, our refinements was a kind of conversation, basically, the product owner or the business telling the stories and, having a conversation about it. So that was a problem. That was something that we learned. Also, we try to reinforce development and testing techniques without a common driver. You can basically what we did is we deliver a lot of training, but without a clear vision or a clear goal, right? Or a clear OKR, So we did a lot of training about agile testing, training about BDD trainings, but without a clear vision, a clear goal. That was a mistake at the beginning in our first experiments. And also, of course, automate everywhere, right? Automation. Sorry about that. Let me share this. Okay, we tried also a lot of automation for integration, automation testing for functional. We did a lot of automation without a strategy. Okay, so we failed in this first approach. We failed, but of course we are agilists and we try to do things better, right? In the second sprint, we try to move forward and do new experiments. Okay, so this is what we try. In our second experiment, we try this, a combination between agile testing mindset and practices plus BDD, behavior driven development. As part of agile testing, we tried, first of all, shift left testing. So we try to move the testing to the left, with unit. We start with this with unit testing and test driven development at the beginning. And also, we tried test lean. We tried to apply lean mindset and lean practices in our testing cycles to reduce the waste of our testing. We tried that. I think also another important aspect of that is test as a team, right? In our case, we try to say, okay, no matter if you are a product owner or if you're a Scrum Master or you are a developer or tester, we all are responsible of the quality of our product. So with that mindset, everybody in the teams has the responsibility to test, to test the product, and take care of the quality. That was another approach. And also we tried behavior driven development with a discovery, formulation, and automation approach, right? As part of discovery, we did example mapping. That is why we are here, right? I'm going to share with you how we apply example mapping in our project. About formulation and about automation, we use Gherkin for that. Also, in automation, we use Selenium and Cucumber and Serenity BDD and for that, for the automation part. I'm going to share with you some examples of that, so you can take the idea about how we apply this in our testing. Okay, so that was our main approach in our second experiment. And strategy, right? This is something quite important. I know that you know that because some of you are people working in Agile, right? So I assume that you are Scrum developers, or you are Scrum masters, or you are agile coaches, maybe. So our first approach was we need to define our strategy and our objective. So this was our objective, our OKR, right? Improve quality and customer developer experience. That was our goal, you know. And for that goal, we have 3 key results. Number 1, reduce functional gaps. Number 2, increase demo and review NPS, you know, the NPS of our customers in the reviews, and reduce waste, you know. We had the goal to reduce all the waste from our testing cycles. So as you can see here, our strategy and our key results were related to our mindset, right? Test lean, agile testing as a whole, quality as a whole team, and of course, applying BDD techniques, you know. This is part of the strategy, and people, this is quite important, right? Because it's quite different when you take a training and do stuff. It's different from have a vision, right? And know your goal. You know, I think it's different if you apply this in this way. Okay. First of all, right, quality as 3 amigos team sport. As I said, we try to use this agile testing mindset to make the testing responsibility and the quality inside the team. You know, everybody is responsible for the quality. So we work together as a team to test, to check the quality and so forth. So that is why we apply this idea, the quality as 3 amigos team sports, product owner, business, testers, and coders. That's the idea. It wasn't easy, of course, but at the end, when you as a team have the same OKR, no matter if you are a tester or business or Scrum Master, you can make people working together, you know, and working as a real team, right? So that was the first approach. Second one was the test lean automation mindset, right? And this is part of the test lean approach. Basically, what we did is we use a flow framework for that. Flow framework, you know, this is a framework to set up your value stream, you know, and identify some, in this case, we use the metric, the flow efficiency, you know, and the image here, you can see the entire development process in one of our teams. So in this process, we identify the waste, or we identify those stages or those times that are not productive to our cycle, you know. So we identify this waste, and we analyze the situation. We prepare some initiatives to remove the waste, and we try to improve our flow efficiency, right? So that was one approach. You can use it, right? Flow framework with flow efficiency metric to apply test lean in your testing cycle, right? This is an example of what we did. Number 2. Okay, number 3, it's behavior driven development with example mapping, right? I know that some of you maybe know what is BDD, and some of you maybe don't know what is BDD, but behavior driven development is a technique, you know, to develop software where you create your scenarios based on your behavior of your functionality, right? The behavior of your users using your software. That's the idea, right? You are going to create your scenarios working together with the 3 amigos, with business, with development, with testing. You're going to define the scenarios, the behavior of your software working together, right? That's the main approach of behavior-driven development. Behavior-driven development, because at the end, those behavior or those scenarios are going to drive what you are going to code, you know? So that's the idea, right? Your code is going to be driven by your behavior of your application of your scenarios. That's the idea of behavior-driven development. So I'm going to share with you this example of step by step about how you can apply behavior-driven development. Okay. Okay. Step number 1. Sorry. Before that, sometimes people ask me, "Hey, Jorge, but this is a technique, right? But where I have to apply this technique, right?" In our case, we apply this technique in our refinements, right? More or less, we have 1 refinement per sprint. In sometimes, depending on the number of user stories or functionalities or features that we need to work on, we have 2 refinements, right? But more or less, you can have 1 refinement depending of your team maturity and your complexity of your software. You can have 1 hour refinement or maybe 2 hours or 1 hour and a half, depending of your situation, right? But first recommendation, you need to apply this, or that is my recommendation. You can apply this technique in your refinements. So see, if you right now, you are having your refinements in the way that we had at the beginning in the first experiment, where we had basically conversations, you can use this approach to structure your refinements, okay? That's the idea. Okay, number 1, identify the user story, right? And of course, in the left, you have the steps. In the right, you have a real example of the technique putting in practice, right? So find account statement is a user story, a simple user story from a bank, because I work with banks right now. So yeah, so that's the idea. So first steps, identify the user story. Of course, this is more or less the responsibility of the product owner, of the business guy in your team, the people who know the business, this is something that she needs to prepare before the session, right? She needs to understand she needs to pick up the user stories or prepare the user stories, a kind of draft for user stories, bring the user stories to the session, right? Define the user stories, step number 1. Okay, step number 2, and this is in the session, right? In the session, we're with the product owner, with the developer, with the tester, with the DBA, with all the people that is part of your team, right? If your team, for example, right? In my case, some of my teams has developers, has testers, has designers, has Scrum Masters, also DBAs, you need to involve all of them in your refinement session or in your example mapping session, right? All of them. So step number 2 is about list the business. Sorry again. 1 second, please. Yeah. Okay. Step number 2. Sorry. Okay. Here. Yeah. Okay. Step number 2 with all the guys in the session. As I said, first list the business rules, right? The acceptance criteria. You need to work together. Okay, you can take the story. You need to ask questions, understand the user story or the requirements, or the needs, whatever the name that you want to call them, user story, requirement, needs, or whatever name that you want to use, depending of your approach. Step number 2, you need to talk together with your team, the whole team together, and list the business rules. For example, right? If the user story is find account statements, you need to ask, okay, what are the business rules that support this user story, or that I need to work on, or I need to apply to develop well this user story. Okay, so there are some examples. Account statements can be ordered by any type of account, searchable by the range, search by account number, be account statements for a given financial year, and so forth. So you need to discuss with your team what are those business rules. They are similar to acceptance criteria, and actually they are pretty the same, but this is part of the exercise. You need to work together on that. Maybe you are asking to yourself, hey, but this is something that the product owner should work before the session. Yes, yeah, that is the ideal case, But as you know, as some of you know, this is not happening usually, right? So that is why you need to take advantage of the session, and in the session try to discover these acceptance criteria or these business rules as step number 2. Okay? At least that is my recommendation. If you have a mature product owner, that would be awesome, But this is a kind of step-by-step process. Okay. Step number 3. With these business rules, you need to discuss and agree and write examples, similar to college, right? I don't know in your case, but for example, in my case, when I was in college, when the teacher said, okay, or the professor, sorry, said, okay, this is a kind of exercise, or this is a example of this software, or example of this concept, my first question is, hey, professor, can you give me an example of that, right? In real life? Okay, you can apply this functionality in a bank, in the customer service approach, or when you have some claims about your product, whatever, right? A real example of that. So it's the same situation. We need to ask together for examples. Okay, that is why this technique has this name, right? Example mapping, So you need to ask per each rule, you need to ask with your team, okay, what are the examples of this rule? Account statements can be ordered by any type of account. Okay, give me examples. Like, what about if I am a client, I am a user, I need to follow these rules. What are the examples? Okay, one example can be user one, a generic user. User one sorts account statements, but by saving accounts, for example. That was a kind of example, right, of the situation. Let's take another. Imagine that business rule is search by account number. Okay, that is the business rule. Okay, what are the examples? User one search for a particular account statements, for a particular one, a specific account number. Another example can be user one does a search where the account number doesn't exist, for example. What is the behavior of the application in that example, in that situation? So those are the kind of questions that you need to ask with your team. Okay, maybe at this time you're asking, hey Jorge, but when I'm going to be okay about the number of examples? Basically team, this is a kind of agreement between product owners, testers, and developers. When you feel that with the examples that you have, you are okay with that to start development, that's great. Let's do it, please. Please don't think too much. Just take the examples and please quotes, It depends of your team agreement, depending of how do you feel that you understand the entire user story, right? That's my recommendation, at least. There is not a kind of GPT chats or a kind of robots that are going to be the answer for you. No, you need to basically have an agreement about it. By the way, nowadays I'm using GPT chat to develop scenarios and examples, and it's working well. Maybe I'm going to prepare another talk about this, about using behavioral driven development and GPT chat to prepare scenarios. So, but this is part of another conversation, but you can try if you like. It's working well until now. Okay, let's continue. Okay, that's step number 3. Step number 4. Of course, as any kind of meetings, there are some questions, right, that maybe we cannot resolve, right? We cannot answer at that time. So please write your question, right? Write your questions. That is quite important, because more or less, depending of your questions, someone need to take the responsibility to answer the question later, right? It can be the product owner, it can be the Scrum Master, maybe it can be the developer, it can be a tester, So please write your questions. That's quite important. Step number 5, and I think that is something that if you read books about behavioral driven development, maybe you are not going to find in those books. Step number 5 is select the examples or scenarios with the, identify the positive scenarios and also identify the negative scenarios. That is important, because remember, these scenarios are going to be part of your development. They are going to drive your development and your testing. So it's quite important to differentiate them between positive scenarios and negative scenarios or examples, right? Especially for automation testing. Okay, and finally, number 6 is a combination between example mapping and slicing, user story slicing, right? In my experience, when we apply this technique, in most of the cases, we identify that the user story is too big. It's too big, it's too complicated. For example, if you have a lot of green posits, so I mean a lot of examples and a lot of business rules, I think it's a good idea to use slicing, right? Because develop that story is going to be too much complicated. So I recommend you first analyze and use slicing, right? So for example, in this case, we apply slicing in this way, right? We create a new user story using these 3 business rules, and then get 2 more user stories with two business rules in one story, and finally the other one with another new story with only one business rule, right? It depends of your case, but that is my recommendation. Take advantage of this using, of course, slicing as well. Yeah, it's a good practice. Okay, and basically that was our approach. As I said, you know, if you remember, when I start this conversation, BDD has 3 stages, right? First of all is a formulation, or first, sorry, is a discovery, right? When we discover the behavior, basically using example mapping, as I mentioned, right? We discover the scenarios, we discover the examples, we discover the business rules, we discover the slicing user stories, and so forth. That is discovering, right? And the second stage is the formulation, right? We need to formulate our scenarios or examples. We need to formulate them using some specific language. In this case, Gherkin. I recommend you use Gherkin because, you know, Gherkin is a kind of nice language where you can use it to structure your examples in a way to business, product owners, and tester can understand, you know, the given when then approach. So I recommend you to use Gherkin to formulate your user stories as part of behavior driven development. And finally, I think so. Yes. And finally, you know, the automation part, you know, as part of behavior driven development, first you discover the scenarios, you discover the examples, then you formulate your examples in a kind of language so anyone in your team can understand the example using giving when them from Gherkin, and then you need to automate your examples. So that is quite important, guys, especially if you are also adopting DevOps or continuous testing ways of working, because at the end, as you know, you want to take all the testing or the most important testing to your pipeline, right? To your DevOps pipeline as part of your DevOps adoption. So yeah, in this case, you can use Selenium for functional testing, Cucumber, Serenity BDD, for example, as this approach. So you can apply this entire strategy for your functional automation testing, right? As part of, for example, regression, right? In our case, we had a big problem because the 100% of our regression testing was manually, and it takes more or less 2 weeks or more to do the entire regression, right? Which is a lot of effort, people doing a lot of manual stuff. So that is why we try to apply this agile testing approach with BDD for our functional regression testing, you know, as part of our approach. Okay. Something that is quite important, no matter if you are doing agile or DevOps or a combination of both, feedback, right? You need to get feedback about your experimentation, about your testing, about how you are working, right? So that this is an example of how we get testing from our, how we get feedback from our testing using behavior driven development, using, in this case, Cucumber, you know. So we have these kind of reports where we get data about our testing, our test fail, our bugs, and so forth. You know, that is quite important. This information about your testing, about your bugs, is quite important to fix the problems, right? Fix the problems in an easy way, in a quickly way, you know, get feedback. Okay, and something extra I see is that as if you remember at the beginning, I said that we apply this approach, you know, and we define an OKR, and one KR was about the NPS, you know, of our clients during the review. Do you remember that? You know? So about that point, we use this Gherkin approach, this example mapping approach for our demos and reviews. So basically in the demo, we present our examples, you know, with Gherkin, because as I said, right, Gherkin is a language that everybody can understand, business, technical or not technical people. So we use this approach to prepare and to facilitate our reviews and demos with our clients, you know. And actually, to be totally honest with you, they work very well, you know, because at the beginning, the business understand what are the example of a real user using the application, And then they can say they can see also the behavior of that example in with real software, right? So that was something very good that it worked well. I know that maybe you're asking, hey Jorge, but so that means that you run your demos in non-production environments. In some cases, yes, we run some demos in non-production environments, but you can run your demos or your reviews in production environments also. Of course, if you want to do that, you need to apply some techniques, right? Test data management, you need to data masking your data, depending of how important is your data in your production environment. You can use data masking in your staging environment, for example, to run your demos and reviews. And of course, you can also apply A/B testing, kernel release, or feature toggle, depending of your approach, right? Of your DevOps approach in production. So you can apply this technique as well to run your demos and reviews in production in a safe environment, right? You can do that as well. Okay. Number 8, as I said, now that you have all your automated tests, right? Your functional tests with Gherkin, with example mapping, with Gherkin, with Selenium, and so forth. As part of continuous testing approach, you need to create a strategy to put those tests in the pipeline, in the DevOps pipeline, because this is part of our agile testing approach in our case. So this is an example of a strategy that we apply for our pipeline, right? We had in our pipeline levels of testing, level 1, level 2, level 3, and so forth. And in each level, we have some specific kind of testing, right? In level 1, you have unit testing. In level 2, you have API testing, integration testing, and some part of UI testing as well. In level 3, we have API testing also, and UI testing. And level 4, and in level 4, we have our functional regression testing, automated functional regression testing. So we apply this approach for our testing strategy in the pipeline. And of course, we move our automated tests to the pipeline as part of continuous testing. Okay. 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 Just to finish, guys. Thank you very much again for your time. Just to sum up, BDD. Sorry, I said BDD, which is in Spanish. BDD, BDD and example mapping can help us to improve team collaboration. Please try example mapping. It's quite awesome. Having the guy discussing the requirement, the developer, the tester, the business. It's really nice experience. Improve team collaboration, improve quality. You see that, right? The entire agile testing approach. Developer experience as well, because developers want to share, their point of view about the examples of the behavior of the functionality, right? They like coding, but also they want to participate in the creation of the product, right? And build up customer trust in the product, right? So I think this is a kind of good package if you want to improve quality, team collaboration, developer experience, and customer satisfaction or customer NPS or customer trust, right? So yeah, that is the sum up of this conversation. And to finish, books. I recommend you those books. Maybe you're asking, hey Jorge, those are many books. Please give me one. Okay, if I can recommend you only one, it's kind of hard to me, but I will recommend Discovery, Explore Behavior Using Examples. I recommend you these books. Maybe you can read this book at the beginning, and then you can read the others. Okay, I recommend Discovery, Explore Behavior Using Examples. But the rest of the books, sorry Lisa, sorry Janet, the rest of the book are awesome. Are awesome as well. But if you ask me for to read one book at the beginning, I would recommend this one. Okay, remember that we all have dreams, so please help and share more. Why I'm here? I'm here because I like sharing. I like sharing knowledge. I like building communities, sharing experiences. I know that we can learn from anyone, so please keep your dreams and help and share more. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your time. So is it Jorge? I asked you before and you said George, but then I hear you saying Jorge. So how do you say your name?
It's Jorge, but I know that
Jorge.
it's difficult sometimes, so I prefer George, you know.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your time and sharing that example. And we have time now for some questions. So please, this is a self-organized group. Feel free to unmute yourself. And if you have any questions to George, feel free to ask.
Okay.
No questions? This is completely not my domain. Normally I can rescue and I can ask some questions, but this is completely not my domain. So I cannot rescue here. So anybody tried a similar approach before?
I don't know. Maybe I can share something about this. I know that as part of my talk, I share with you some agile testing and continuous testing approach, right? Which demands knowledge of test automation, maybe, and pipelines and so forth, right? But remember something, people. As part of behavior driven development, the first step is the discovery part, and in the discovery part, there is not technical stuff, right? It's basically facilitation, is basically having a discussion, identify the scenarios, identify the business rules, having the conversation, and so forth, right? So if you're in this group, right, you are someone from the no technical ends. My recommendation in that scenario is that you can take BDD, but focus on the discovery part, the example mapping technique that you can apply as part of your refinements, for example. All right. So that would be a recommendation, because a lot of people ask me, hey, Jorge, I am not a technical people. I am a Scrum Master, or I am an Agilist, and I want to apply this. So I recommend you to focus on the behavior driven development, the first stage, the discovery parts,
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And George, we have a question here. For a company with no automation in place and no automated pipelines, what is the best approach to kicking off the business users and get buy-in?
Well, in my experience, the best way to get the sponsorship or get the support from business is with results. with results, with evidence of your work. You can talk about agile and Scrum, Kanban, all the stuff, right? But you need to present results, right? So my recommendation is you can try behavior driven development, you can try agile testing, and involve your product owner or business in your example mapping sessions, right? So first of all, in that way, your business can understand how you work, right? In terms of development, right? So they can understand how you work, and also he can share with you the business rules. She can be part of the discussion, about creating the examples of the software. So that would be my recommendation. Try to involve your business in your example mapping session, and of course, in your demos and reviews, please use this, right? Show them the value of this, right? In terms of quality, in terms of speed, right? Something that was good, in my experience, was having the business watching the behavior of a real customer using the application, and something that is extra good is that you work with the business to design that, and it's a real good experience, right? That is my recommendation. If you don't have any pipeline or any automation stuff, try to define your scenarios using example mapping. That was the first approach.
Okay, thank you, Jorge.
Yes, Dave, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yeah, we have one more. Do you see the product owner or the business analyst as owing the example mapping, or do you see it as a shared responsibility?
Good question. Actually, that question is from the trenches. That question is from the trenches, from the field. Okay. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Okay. If you want to get success with this approach, at least at the beginning, we need to take the ownership, right? And when I said we, this you, right? If you're, no matter if you are a developer or you are a tester or you are a scrum master or whatever is your role, if you like this technique, if you like it, right, and you want to try this technique, you need to take the ownership. You need to run the session. You need to talk with your scrum master or whatever, right? And you need we need to change our refinements. We need to apply this technique, example mapping. This is the benefits. We can use this for automation as well, for DevOps as well. So you need to sell the idea, right, to your team. And you need to take the responsibility, right? If no matter if you're a developer or tester or scrum master or whatever, at least at the beginning, And after some iterations, you can change that, right? You can say, okay, after 4 sprints, I think it's time that our scrum master takes the facilitation. Great, you can do it. Maybe for 2 sprints more or 3 sprints more, and then the product owner can take the ownership. I think you can rotate this. You can rotate the facilitation of the session. About the responsibility in terms of functionality and business needs, of course. In this case, the product owner has a big responsibility, right? But to bring what the business needs to the session, I think that is the person, right? But in terms of the facilitation, in terms of the collaboration, I recommend to first take action. You promote this in your team, explain the value, explain the benefits, run the sessions, coach the team, teach the team, and then you can rotate this role, right? The facilitation. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. And we have another question.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, we have actually a good few. Yeah.
It's a record. It's a record to me. 3 questions. Wow.
We have a very vibrant community, George. So you can, I was sure we will get some questions for you. What is a good way to help the stakeholders to understand the importance of automation, automated tests? Most stakeholders see it as an unnecessary cost and only opt for manual testing, which is high effort for our QA engineers.
Okay. With the results, I think first what I recommend you is, okay, try to analyze data with data, and also I recommend you to have conversation with your customers, with your clients, with your product owners or business, and to get information about what are the main constraints about that software, right? About the delivery. Try to get that information. More probably, they are going to share something like, okay, you are slow because I want my product in production in 3 weeks, and you are using 4 weeks or something like that, So you need to get that feedback, right? About the satisfaction of your customers, of your business in terms of your delivery, right? It can be quality, it can be velocity, it can be lead time, cycle time, whatever, right? So first recommendation, try to get that information. Second recommendation, get data from production. Get data from production. The bugs in production, how people is using your product in production, the time that your application was down in production, and so forth. Get data from production. Combine this information, the feedback from your customers, from conversation, with the data from production, combine them, and analyze what are the main constraints in terms of business end. Okay, most probably you are going to get information about, or you are going to get some ideas about, okay, we need to improve the quality. We need to reduce the number of tickets about complaints, for example, or we need to improve our velocity in terms of new features for our product, and so forth, right? So that is my approach. You need to define your OKRs or your goals using real customer and product situation from production and from your delivery. And if you work in that and you improve just 1 KR, you are going to you can present the results to your customers. Your customers are going to understand because they feel the problem, they have the problem, and you're going to present, hey, I could reduce the number of bugs from, I don't know, 10 bugs per release to 2 bugs per release. That is the way that you need to convince your stakeholders with results, you know, with results in terms of quality, in terms of velocity, in terms of efficiency. That's my recommendation.
Thank you very much, George. And we have one more question. And Bruno, I see you went on the camera. Do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, that's fine. So, hi, George. Thanks for your presentation.
Hi.
So my question is regarding like how we can apply the like BDD and everything you explained to non-functional requirements. So for example, if I'm working a backend system that has like scalability or security requirements, how can we approach this using the techniques that you explained?
You can apply them. Thank you, Bruno, for your question. You can apply them as well. Unfortunately, in this case, yeah, that is a good idea, actually, Bruno. Unfortunately, in this talk, I not prepare this kind of non-functional scenario, right? I have some, you know. Okay, let's do that, right? Maybe I can share, you know, with the organization a real example of how we can apply example mapping with a non-functional requirement, right? But you can use it as well. For example, in my case, we apply that, for example, for the integration part, right? For APIs, you know, for the APIs. As you know, when you define APIs, you need to define the methods, you know, when you get information and when you bring information, right? So we apply, for example, example mapping with APIs and integration part with REST services, SOA service, and so forth. That is one. I think the approach is similar, but of course, it's more technical, right? So maybe you can apply this for a kind of, in my experience, at least at the beginning, you need to involve your technical testers, if you have it, and your developers, right? And you as a developer, or as a technical leader, you can be the product owner. Oh, sorry, you can act as a product owner, but more as a kind of technical owner, right? Or something like that, right? And you can present, okay, guys, this is our API. Those are the services that we need to prepare. So let's okay, the scenarios, right? The scenarios or examples of these APIs working in production, you know? So then you can analyze the number of transactions. What about security? You know, what about if the server is down? And you can generate this kind of conversation, right? So if you're okay, Bruno, after this session, I'm going to share with the organizers an example of that, you know, and they are going to share that with the rest of you after the session.
Okay,
Brilliant.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, George. So please make sure you are signed up to our newsletter. Because we'll be distributing all the materials via newsletter. And George, also, if you would like to send us your presentation, we can also share it with the participants.
Yeah, I'm going to share my presentation, and also I'm going to add this extra example from Bruno's question about using example mapping with non-functional requirements. Perfect.
Thank you very much. George, thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge and practical examples. It's always nice to have a case study, not, you know, academic book-based theory, but actually something which was implemented, and we can learn from your success or, you know, setbacks, learnings. That's the word I was looking for. So thanks very much for investing your time in our learning, and enjoy your day. And thanks very much again.